April 24. A man in a perfectly cut black suit walks out of Gucci's Milan headquarters for the last time. No fanfare, no photographers, just the quiet click of Italian leather on marble. Tom Ford, the designer who transformed a dying leather goods company into a $4 billion empire, is leaving. And the fashion world is about to learn that sometimes the price of a soul is higher than any luxury conglomerate can pay. But to understand how we got here, to truly grasp why this departure would send shockwaves through fashion that still ripple today, we need to rewind. Back to when Gucci was hemorrhaging money, when the family feuds had turned toxic, and when an unknown American designer would walk through those same doors with nothing but ambition and a very particular vision of sex, power, and Italian glamour. 1993. Gucci is dying. Not a slow, dignified death, but the messy, public kind. $22 million in losses. Family members hiring hitmen. The grandson of Guccio Gucci shot dead on his ex-wife's doorstep. This isn't fashion, it's Shakespeare with worse costumes. The brand that once dressed Grace Kelly and Jackie Kennedy now can't even dress its windows properly. Enter Dawn Mello, brought in as a last-ditch effort to save what's left. She's American, pragmatic, and she knows talent when she sees it. In 1990, she'd hired this young designer from Texas, Tom Ford, 33 years old, all cheekbones and ambition, to handle women's ready-to-wear. Nobody knew his name then. He was just another American in Milan, trying to understand what made Italian luxury tick. But Ford understood something the Gucci family had forgotten: that luxury isn't about heritage, it's about desire. And desire, well, that was something Tom Ford knew intimately. By 1994, Ford is creative director. Domenico De Sole, the company's lawyer-turned-CEO, sees in Ford what others miss: not just a designer, but an alchemist who can transform perception into profit. Together, they form a partnership that will become legendary. De Sole handling the numbers, Ford handling the dreams. And what dreams they were. Autumn, winter, 1995. The lights dim at the Milan show. The first model walks out in velvet hip huggers so low they seem to defy anatomy. A satin shirt unbuttoned to there, hair slicked back like she just left someone's bed and doesn't care who knows it. The fashion press, accustomed to grunge and minimalism, doesn't know whether to clutch their pearls or lean forward for a better look. They lean forward. This is Ford's Gucci, unapologetic, hypersexual, dripping in a kind of louche glamour that makes you feel slightly dirty just looking at it. He takes the bamboo handle, that sweet, proper Gucci signature, and puts it on bags carried by women in liquid jersey dresses with cutouts in places that make you blush. He resurrects the horse-bit loafer and pairs it with microscopically short skirts. Everything is about contradiction, hard and soft, classic and shocking, proper and absolutely not. "I brought sex back," Ford would later say, with characteristic understatement. But it wasn't just sex, it was power. The power of knowing exactly what you want and not apologizing for it. The power of transformation. The power of making everyone else play by your rules. The numbers tell one story. By 1999, Gucci is worth $4 billion. The company that almost died is now the most desired brand in luxury. Ford graces magazine covers. Celebrities beg for invitations to his shows. That iconic 1997 campaign, you know the one, with the Gucci logo shaved into pubic hair, creates the kind of scandal that money can't buy. Parents complain, editors gasp, sales explode, but numbers don't capture what it felt like to be there. To watch Ford and his collaborators, photographer Mario Testino, stylist Corrine Reutfeld, create a visual language so potent it rewired fashion's nervous system. Every season brought a new obsession: the white jersey dress that launched 1,000 knockoffs, the python boots that cost more than most people's rent, those barely there tops that required a very specific kind of confidence to wear. Ford didn't just design clothes, he designed desire itself. He understood that modern luxury wasn't about craftsmanship or heritage, though Gucci had both. It was about making people feel like the best, most dangerous version of themselves. His customer wasn't buying a bag, she was buying entry into Ford's universe, where everyone was beautiful, everyone was powerful, and everyone was having much better sex than you were. Madonna wore his clothes. Gwyneth Paltrow became his muse. The front row at his shows read like a who's who of people you'd want at the world's most exclusive party. But here's what the magazines didn't tell you. Ford owned more Gucci stock than any other individual. This wasn't just a job for him, it was personal. Every stitch, every campaign, every store opening, he was building something that was fundamentally his. 1999 should have been a victory lap. Instead, it becomes a chess match. Bernard Arnault's LVMH starts circling, buying up Gucci shares like a predator stalking prey. Ford and Desolé watch their independence slipping away, share by share. They need a white knight, and they find one in François Pinault, the French billionaire who runs PPR. In March, Pinault swoops in with a 40% stake, blocking LVMH's takeover. Ford and Desolé think they've won. They've kept the barbarians from the gates. As part of the deal, they get to go shopping themselves, acquiring Yves Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, Bottega Veneta, Alexander McQueen. Ford becomes creative director of YSL alongside Gucci. The fashion press dubs him Superman. He's running two of fashion's most storied houses simultaneously, and somehow making it look easy. But here's the thing about white knights. They expect loyalty. And François Pinault didn't become a billionaire by letting creative directors call all the shots. At first, the tension is subtle. Pinault wants more oversight, more committees, more corporate structure. Ford and Desolé had run Gucci like their personal fiefdom, fast, instinctive, autocratic. Now there are board meetings about board meetings, spreadsheets about spreadsheets, the very bureaucracy that Ford's quick decisions had always bypassed. 2003. Behind the scenes, the relationship is fracturing. Ford designs collections for both Gucci and YSL that are triumphs, critically acclaimed, commercially successful. His YSL Autumn-Winter 2003 show is considered one of the best of his career. But success isn't enough anymore. Pinault wants integration, synergy, all those corporate words that make creative people reach for the nearest drink. The negotiations for Ford and Desolé's contract renewal become a war of attrition. Pinault offers them new terms, less autonomy, more oversight. Ford and Desolé counter with their own demands, maintain creative control or we walk. It's a game of chicken played with a $10 billion company. December 23. The announcement comes via a terse press release. Tom Ford and Domenico Desolé will not renew their contracts. They will leave Gucci Group in April 24. The fashion world reels. How do you replace someone who doesn't just design clothes but creates entire worlds? How do you fill the void left by someone who turned a dying brand into the very definition of modern luxury? Ford's final show for Gucci, Autumn-Winter 2004, is a funeral and a celebration simultaneously. The clothes are quintessentially Ford, sexy, sleek, unapologetic. But there's something else there too, a melancholy, a sense of ending. Models walk the runway in variations of everything Ford made famous. The smoking jacket, the skinny trouser, the liquid jersey dress. It's like watching him pack his entire aesthetic into a single show, a greatest hits album by an artist who knows this is goodbye. Backstage after the show, Ford is surrounded by well-wishers, but his eyes are somewhere else. Later, he'll describe this period as devastating, a midlife crisis. Everything he'd built, everything he'd poured himself into for 15 years, he's walking away from it all. The fashion establishment tries to make sense of it. Some call it a tragedy, the loss of one of fashion's great partnerships. Others see it as inevitable, the collision between creative genius and corporate reality that plays out again and again in luxury fashion. But Ford himself remains circumspect. He doesn't trash Pinault in the press. He doesn't play the victim. He simply says that he and Desolé had different visions for the company's future. April 2004, Ford's last day. Gucci announces they're splitting his role among 4 different designers. 4 people to do what one man did. It's both a compliment and an admission that what Ford brought to Gucci was irreplaceable. Ford retreats. For months, he's barely seen in public. The man who was everywhere, Every party, every opening, every front row disappears. He holes up in his homes in London, Los Angeles, Santa Fe. He watches old movies. He thinks about what comes next. He tells friends he might never design again. The fashion world watches Gucci struggle to find its identity post-Ford. Sales slow. The magic dissipates. The new creative directors, talented people all, can't quite capture that Ford alchemy, that perfect balance of sex and sophistication, commerce and art. They design beautiful clothes, but they can't design desire the way Ford could. Meanwhile, Ford is planning. In 2005, he announces the launch of his own label, the Tom Ford brand, starting with menswear, accessories, fragrances, building slowly, carefully, with Domenico De Sole as his chairman. This time, they own it all. No boards to answer to, no French billionaires pulling strings, just Ford, his vision, and customers who've been waiting to see what he'll do next. Looking back now, 2 decades later, the Ford-Gucci split feels like a turning point, not just for those involved, but for fashion itself. It was the moment when the industry had to confront what it had become, a business of conglomerates and committees, where creative directors were employees, not auteurs, where shareholder value trumped creative value, where the dream factories of fashion had become actual factories. Ford's departure sparked a conversation that continues today. How much freedom should a creative director have? Who really owns a brand's identity? The designer who creates it, or the company that pays for it? Can true creativity exist within the constraints of a multinational corporation? But there's another story here, one that often gets lost in the corporate drama. It's the story of transformation, not just of a brand, but of what luxury could be. Ford didn't just save Gucci, he redefined it for a new millennium. He understood that modern luxury wasn't about belonging to the establishment. It was about seducing it. His Gucci wasn't for the old guard, it was for the rule breakers, the night creatures, the ones who understood that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to apologize for who you are. Today, if you visit Tom Ford's office in London, you'll see something telling. Among the sleek furniture and perfect flowers, there are photographs, not of his current collections or his successful film career. He directed A Single Man and Nocturnal Animals to critical acclaim, but of his Gucci years. There's Corinne Reutfeld, hair tousled, cigarette in hand. There's Mario Testino, camera ready. There's Domenico De Sole, his partner in the revolution. There's even a print from one of those controversial YSL campaigns. He keeps them there, he's said, as reminders, not of what was lost, but of what was possible when creativity was given free rein. When a designer could walk into a dying house and say, "Let me show you what desire looks like," and actually be allowed to do it. Ford once said that everything he touched at Gucci turned to gold. It's a statement that could sound arrogant if it weren't demonstrably true. But what he doesn't say, what perhaps he doesn't need to say, is that the gold was never the point. The point was the transformation, the alchemy, the magic of taking something broken and making it not just whole, but transcendent. The fashion world loves a comeback story, but Ford's departure from Gucci isn't really about comeback. It's about the price of vision in a world that increasingly wants visionaries to color within the lines. It's about what happens when someone who changed everything decides that everything isn't enough if you can't own it. Today, young designers study Ford's Gucci years like sacred texts. They parse the campaigns, dissect the silhouettes, try to understand how he made it all look so effortless. But what they're really trying to understand is how someone could be so unapologetically themselves in an industry that demands constant compromise. The answer, perhaps, is that he couldn't. Not forever. Not when the compromise became too great. So he walked away from the empire he built, from the billions in value he created, from the position everyone in fashion would kill for. He walked away because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to let someone else define your worth. In his final interview before leaving Gucci, Ford was asked what he was most proud of. He could have mentioned the sales figures, the awards, the global expansion. Instead, he said something else. "I'm proud that we never compromised the vision." Right until the end, every single thing that went out was exactly what we wanted it to be. Until it wasn't. Until the vision belonged to someone else. Until the only choice left was to walk out those Milan doors, black suit impeccable, and never look back. Because here's what Tom Ford understood that perhaps Francois Pinault didn't. You can own a company. You can own the trademark, the stores, the archives, but you can't own the thing that makes people lean forward in their seats. You can't own desire. You can't own transformation. You can't own magic. And without the magician, all you have are very expensive tricks. The story of Tom Ford and Gucci isn't just about fashion. It's about the eternal tension between art and commerce, between vision and compromise, between creating something and owning it. It's about what happens when someone who changed the world decides the world needs to change a little more. And it's about the courage, or perhaps the tragedy, of walking away from everything you built because the alternative is watching it become something you don't recognize.